meeting to order. The chair notes there's a quorum present. Commissioner Wilkins is joining us by phone, so all three of us are here. And we'll do the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, 2.0, additions and revisions to the agenda. I'm going to add a 6.5, which is radio installations in the road department. There's been we might need a modified motion to pay for those, so that'll be under 6.5. Any other changes or revisions?
No.
Sherry?
No.
Okay. Okay, moving on to 3.0, correspondence and public comment. We'll start with public comment. Individuals wishing to address the county court may do so at this time and at other times throughout the meetings. Speakers are asked to raise your hand to be recognized by the chair, give your name and address, and limit comments to 3 minutes. Is there anybody who would like to share? Not right now. Okay. Correspondence. There is a letter from David Lowe, who's the Director of Disposal Operations at Waste Management, addressed to the court with some updates, and I thought I would it's pretty short, so I will read it really quickly. It says, hello, Judge Farrar and Commissioners Weatherall and Wilkins. I'm writing to report progress we are making in a number of important areas. First, competitive compensation for waste management employees. This has been and will continue to be a priority of mine. Progress is being made. We've entered into an agreement with WADCO to provide routine maintenance on the gondolas. Additionally, we have installed a system at our reload facility in Seattle to spray the top of loaded cars with a high-tech bonding agent called dirt glue. Dirt glue is a polymer that soaks in, dries, and binds to create a crust-like layer. This appears to be a promising approach for covering loads. We would love for you to take a trip to Seattle to observe the application process. If the trip doesn't work, please come to the landfill to touch and see what this application does. We're looking at applying dirt glue on the full loads before they leave Seattle, as well as on empty gondolas before they return to Seattle to bind any residual. We've installed several special air filtration systems in our heavy equipment that operate in and around waste materials. This is not necessary per regulation, but we're taking the extra steps to make sure our employees are protected from any type of potential exposure. Changes in the rail unload area are taking shape to be protective of the environment as well. New kiosk operations are now in place in Seattle at the Argo yard. When fully operational, the kiosk operations will relieve much of the redundant work that's been required for years at the Columbia Ridge office to track and invoice incoming waste. As a result, we expect to reduce overtime and better support work-life balance for our employees. The rail crossing issue has not been resolved, and we looked to the county for collaboration to help to find a fix to this situation. I hope this update is helpful as another demonstration of my team's commitment to making our Arlington operations a best place to work. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to Alan, Kip, or me. David Lowe.
I had one response to the letter, and I guess I'll go ahead and tell the court.
Yeah.
I emailed him back and said thank you. We really appreciate the keeping us informed. I also said that I had one comment regarding the rail crossing issue. I said it had been explained to me by several people that if they pulled one track at a time to the main line and put the train together on the main line, the crossing would only be blocked for a few minutes while they pulled the track out. I said that I'm obviously no rail expert, but that seemed like a simple solution to me. And then I also asked too if this information, that letter had been provided to the Citizen Advisory Committee. And he said, go ahead and forward it, so.
Okay. Did he respond on your other thing about the railroad, or just on the?
No, he just said you can send it to the CAC if you like. He said thank you.
I also.
And I also responded with that same type of solution that the WACO knows how many cars fit in the yard, and they can break their train on the main line and do their uncoupling and their coupling on the main line and avoid that blockage, but I didn't get a response either.
And I sent him one and suggested that he touch base with Gary about just even having someone stationed there for, just to try to keep people from running, trying to beat the train. And I did not receive a response either, so. Sounds like we're all reaching out. He may not be sending us another update. So, okay, that's all I have for correspondence. 4.0 consent agenda.
I move we approve the consent agenda.
I second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the consent agenda, which consists of consider approval of May 1st bills pending review, consider approval of May 15th regular meeting minutes, and consider approval of OSU extension request for release of budgeted funds. Is there further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, moving on to unfinished business, 5.1, Frontier TeleNet update. So the Frontier TeleNet budget committee met, let's see, the 23rd, I believe, of May. We had 3 lay people, 1 from each of the counties, and I thought it went really well. It looks like we actually are in better financial shape than what I thought we might be, so, which is good. There would be a slight increase to each of the counties, but not what anywhere near where I thought we might be. So that was promising. Then the board met for a regular meeting that afternoon, and I'm trying to think of highlights here. We approved a contract with Inland Development, Windwave, to do an independent audit of the entire Frontier TeleNet system. So they're going to be looking at the towers, the equipment that's on the towers. They're also going to be looking at the books and making sure that we're invoicing everyone that's on the network, that all of that is clean. So I just saw when we've sent the contract to Judge Morley this morning, so hopefully they will be started on that shortly, and we'll have more information from them. And anyway, so one of the other things we talked about was going back and looking at the AOC recommendations from way back when. The independent audit was one of those recommendations, so I feel like that's kind of a good initial first step. But I basically just put Judge DeBolskas and Judge Morley on notice that I was just going to be adding that to the agenda from here on out. Since they made the mistake of letting me put together the agendas, I'm just going to put it on there. So, so we did that. I'm trying to think of the other big significant. We are going to be soliciting proposals for new telecom legal counsel. Judge Hull, who is our just general counsel, is going to be reaching out to law firms that he knows and trusts that have telecommunications specialties. And since it's a legal procurement, we're able to do that informally. So he's going to do that. And I think those were the highlights. Sherry, did I miss anything really important?
Well, I don't think so. It sounds like you covered it.
Okay. Sherry was there too. And then we'll do next week on the 12th is the budget hearing for, and then the regular meeting will be later in the month, and both of those are in Fossil. All right, 5.2, Greenlab update. Sherry,
Yes.
what's the latest?
Well, I did forward you the information, the last email I had from Peter Mitchell. And my concern with that was his statement that the interested parties were sounding like they were no longer interested. So I'm not sure how much energy and expense we want to put into pursuing it if they're just going to pull out. So I still working with Peter Mitchell and, to see where we're at.
Has the company connected with you directly? Or are they,
No.
are they still going through Peter?
They're still going through Peter. And what I had asked Peter for was for someone from the company to come to the court and, give us some type of presentation on what they're actually looking for, so we could make an informed decision. Peter wants me to contact the EDA, but I have nothing in writing or any type of proposal to give to the EDA at this point to determine if the Greenlab is something that this is a project that could be utilized there. So we're still in limbo.
Okay. Questions, Leslie?
No, that sounds good. I mean, I don't know what else we can do at this point.
Right.
Yeah, hopefully the company will connect with you directly if they're still interested.
Yeah, he has my information, and I'm sure Peter has told him of our concerns, but I haven't heard anything. So I don't know if we're still in that mode where he is having second thoughts about relocating here.
Okay. Anything else, Jerry, on that?
No.
Okay. 5.3, Ardent Mills Building Update. Jeff.
All right, good afternoon.
Hello.
How's the salad?
What's that? It was
How's
great.
the salad?
Fantastic. So Commissioner Wilkins and I toured the Ardent Mills facility, I don't know what day, it was a couple of Wednesdays ago, Monday, it was Monday of some week, we looked at it, the 20th, I think. And there was a couple things we looked at. They pointed out where they had some roof leaks. I contacted the roofer, I don't have anything coordinated on that yet. That was one of the concerns. There was also a concern about the condition of the rear steps out by the loading dock. There's kind of three issues that I think are actually separate issues. One of the issues was when we rebuilt the steps, or when the Contact rebuilt the steps, I think in the fall of 2017, they rebuilt the steps and then they kind of put what I call a scrub coat over the top of it, which is a thin layer of cementitious material. Cementitious is one word. So, and that scrub coat's coming off, which I've contacted the people that put it on. I was kind of happy because it wasn't like the structure underneath it wasn't falling apart. Somehow the handrails popped out of its brackets that it's supposed to be in, and that needs to be put back in. I don't honestly know how that happened, but I think that's a separate issue. And then there was some more concrete damage that I think is just due to ice and snow at the landing outside of the door that leads to the stairway. So I've contacted the people that did that work to say, hey, can you come fix your steps? And then, by the way, can I get a proposal to put the handrail back in and potentially repair? There's about, I don't know, 4 or 5 square feet of concrete that needs to be repaired in the project. So that's where that stands. There was a couple of other things. The lighting controller isn't working that controls the outside lights. I kind of suspect I know what's wrong with that, but it's going to take an electrician to fix it. I haven't done anything with that because I wanted some direction from the court to go ahead and contact an electrician or have somebody contact an electrician to address that. And then we looked at, Ardent Mills wanted to put in a little different security system, and I think there's some question, which I can't really help with, about who's going to do it, but I kind of gave them some idea about what I thought roughly budget-wise it would cost and what the scope of work would be to put that in. And then we looked around the outside of the building some. So that's what I have. Does anybody have any questions?
I know.
Did I cover it, Commissioner Wilkins?
I believe you did.
Okay, yeah. So that's where that one stands. So would you like me to proceed with looking at getting that lighting controller fixed?
I mean, I I think so. What do you think, Sherry?
Yeah, I think we need to do that.
Okay.
They're having to bid off and on, and the issue, I'm always leery of an electrical issue, so I think having that looked at would be good.
Okay.
Agreed. You in agreement?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Anything else on that?
Nope.
That's it. Well, we'll keep you up here and move on to 5.4, courthouse roof update.
Okay, so on May 24th, I met with Travis Nelson of Brown Roofing and Jeremy, whose name I can't remember, who is a roofing consultant, and we looked at the roof up here. And so what we were trying to do was really two things. One was to see if there was moisture in the insulation. We were assuming that there wasn't, or we were hoping there wasn't. And then the second thing was to do a pull test with the idea that we could put a PVC roof directly over the top of the existing roof and it would peel up. And so to get a warranty on that, you have to do a pull test. And so they found water in like 60% of the insulation in there. So the type of insulation up there will tolerate having water in it and still perform thermally pretty well. But we're not going to be able to get a roof and put over the top of that that's warm. So that kind of leads us to removing the roof and the insulation that's underneath it, and then coming back with the new roof, which is kind of where we started. And so when we do that, it will probably end up being on the higher end of that budget range, which was 150 plus number. And so I think what we'll come back with is a PVC roof with, it'll be roughly 3 inches or a little bit more of insulation, which will give us R20, which will meet the current code, the current building code for the current Oregon Energy Specialty Code. Insulation rating for the roof. And so that's where I left it. I haven't prepared the documents to go out for bid. I wanted to talk to you before I did that. And my intent is over the next couple of weeks is to complete the bid documents and then put that out for bid later this month.
How long does that process?
The bid
take?
process?
That plus the, like when, be
That's
done
it.
by the end of the summer maybe?
So the bid process, once you put it out, takes at least a month usually. Because you have to advertise it, and then there's a certain amount of time after you advertise it that you can accept the bid, and then it has to be accepted by the court, right? And then there's a time lag. So based on my continued problems with getting contractors here, my intent is to put it out for bid. So we'll probably, I'm guessing, the second July meeting have something that we can talk about. And then my bet is that the work we would try to have the work done in like September.
Okay.
That's kind of my
So
thought.
still on track though to have it done before winter?
Yeah, and I'm hoping that we can get contractors to do that.
Okay.
So that's where we are. So I've worked with Travis from Brown, because it's going to go out for full bid. It'll go out, but I'm hoping that they will return us a number. We've had significant problems getting responses for jobs that I thought we would get responses for.
Questions for Jeff? Sherry?
No, I'm good.
Leslie?
Okay,
You're looking?
No, I don't think so.
okay,
I think I asked him last time.
okay. All right.
So, do you need anything from us?
Nope.
We'll just start
We're
that.
just going to proceed with how we thought we were going to go.
Okay.
Okay?
Works for me.
Thanks, Jeff.
All right, thank
Sounds
you.
good.
Thank you.
Have a nice day.
Sounds good. Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Sarah.
Are you going to stay around for the ADA stuff?
Oh, sure, I will.
So, I mean, you can, it shouldn't take us too long
No.
to get down to there.
Okay.
Okay. 5.5, consider appointment of road committee members, Zone 1. So we have had one letter of interest, and this is for the Northwest Quadrant from Paul Barnett. So
Do you have any concerns, Leslie?
No, I think since we have one interested, we should probably take him up on it.
Yeah. Do we need a motion?
Yes,
Yes.
please.
Okay, I move we appoint Paul Barnett to the road committee member for Zone 1 Northwest Quadrant.
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we appoint Paul Barnett for the road committee for Zone 1, which is the Northwest Quadrant. Is there further discussion?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion carries. Okay, 5.6 is review and consider approval of Chief of Staff hiring procedures, position profile, and revised job description. So our new legal counsel took a look at our recruitment process and suggested to us that if we, well, let me back up. When our new legal counsel came on board, one of the questions I asked from him is if there's a way for the chief of staff candidates to be interviewed by the full court in executive session, so that the candidates did not have to do an interview during a public meeting. So they could maintain their privacy with their current employers, and so that all three of us could participate. He said that there is a way to do that according to ORS, and that requires us basically adopting hiring procedures, a position profile, and all of those things during public meetings, allowing public comment on those, and then as you'll see in the actual hiring procedures, it spells out what that process is. So that would allow us then to be able to meet in executive session to interview our finalist candidates. So what you have in your packet is just sort of the first draft that he and I worked on together. It anticipates that there may be revisions, and so I'm looking to capture if there's any concerns with any of the documents or revisions that you want me to take back to him, that we would do that. He would finalize them, and then they would come back before us during the next June meeting for approval. So, any questions about it?
I didn't have any changes.
Okay.
I didn't either, and I thought it was very thorough.
Yeah, I thought they did a good job. The one things I was looking at, are you guys okay with the timeframes for the interviews? Or did you want me to try to put those on to court dates? Because right now, I think the 19th is maybe, I don't know what date that is, let me see. August 19th is a Monday, and so we meet on the 21st, so I didn't know if you wanted me to.
How many people are we hoping to interview?
I think we're looking at up to 3 for the executive session. Well, there'd be 2 executive sessions, so there'd be one meeting with the committee to narrow down the pool to those 3, and then there'd be a second executive session to interview. So
the 19th was the actual interview. When was the other date?
the other date was the 9th, which is a Friday, but we could move that to the 7th, which is also a court date.
That would work better for me.
Okay.
Yeah, at this stage with Mom, that would be better for me too, shouldn't have less days away.
Okay. So I will have him just update those dates. So the committee court joint applicant review completed on August 7th, and then the interview for finalists on August 21st.
Okay.
And then the other thing was the committee, the hiring committee. My recommendation is that we include both electeds and staff on that. And so my recommendation to this court would be that we would look at having Ellen and Nathan, as those are the 2 electeds that I think would have the most interaction with this person. Ellen on the HR stuff and Nathan on the budget side. And then 1 employee, and so I'm throwing it out there that I would recommend Amy Nation, since she would be one of the supervised staff. So I wanted to see if you had thoughts on that, because I will want to include that in the
I think those are excellent selections.
Okay. So
I do too.
I will have him add those names to the final. Okay, any comments aside from that? And if not, I'll have him make these changes and then we'll bring it back for the next board meeting.
Okay, sounds good.
Sounds good. Okay. Moving on to new business. 6.1, discuss courthouse ADA
You
upgrade.
have a comment back
Oh,
here.
sorry.
I was gonna wait until the last, but I think this heat and my sinus gravis does not get along, so could I speak now?
Of course, of course. Sorry about that, I didn't even look up.
Boy, you wouldn't know. Yeah, what am I? Not too good at deals.
And it is hot in here, so.
I'm sure they didn't.
It's really nice here.
It's nice to Sherry's office. Well, hopefully the air conditioning will be fixed by tomorrow.
That's what they told me.
Doesn't do a lot of good for today, but hopefully by tomorrow. Larry, do you just want to say your name
Yeah.
for the record? So Mary's got it and so.
Yeah, Larry Snyder, Condon, Oregon. Well, I'd like to ask you, you still haven't taken any classes as far as the juvenile court thing? You're still not planning on doing that?
No.
That's nothing to do with what we're discussing now.
Could you hear me okay?
Yeah, I think she heard you.
Okay.
Yeah, I did.
And
You're fine.
I see with this new position you're advertising on, it looks like you're still headed for the 5 commissioner new court setup for the county.
No,
Is that right?
no,
Okay.
we're not.
Eh?
No, this has been in the paper, and so I think it's worthwhile to just let everybody know for the record how this will work on the juvenile court function is a separate matter from the makeup of the county court. So we actually just heard back from our legal counsel about that this week. So the 2 commissioner, 1 judge is in statute, and it is not impacted by whether we have juvenile court functions here or not. So Crook County, for instance, has no probate and no juvenile, but they retain the 2 commissioner and 1. And so our council has advised us that the only way that this would change, the 2 commissioners and 1 judge, is if the court made a separate decision, separate from the juvenile court decision, to change. And we, as far as I know, we have not discussed that and have not even pursued
And
going
it
down that
would
route.
not, wouldn't something like that would not go to a vote of the people too?
It
That
can.
point, right?
It depends on how we would do it, but most of the time I think it's done via charter, and that's often referred to the voters for a vote. But we're not pursuing a charter or changing the makeup.
I did see several weeks ago where you dropped this advertisement for this job. And why was that changed then at the time? Somebody said it was kind of your council advised you to do something different, is that right?
So the reason, yeah, so we had advertised the position and then we got new counsel in the meanwhile. And their advice to us, because I wanted all 3 of us to be able to interview the chief of staff position. And in order to do that, we had to go through some steps that we didn't initially take. So we had to stop the recruitment and then go through just this process that we just did a minute ago, reviewing the hiring procedures. Was based on his counsel that we needed to go through that process in order to be able to conduct interviews in executive session.
But you go through this thing about the juvenile thing, once we lose that, it's gone. The county system has changed, correct?
The system itself would not change. The only thing that would change, I mean, we'd still be meeting exactly like this. The commissioners and I would still have the same titles, the only difference would be in a juvenile court, who's sitting up there would be really the only difference.
That's what has me concerned. I still think there should be a county referendum and vote on that. You just talked about voting on this other thing. a county vote the citizens of this county should be informed, and we should have a vote before we lose our local control for our juveniles. I mean, you folks be up to having a referendum vote on that, because the people in Gilliam County did not elect you to change this system. Everybody's very happy the way it was. It's been that way for decades, very successful. And people in the street are not happy about losing our local, juvenile system.
I mean, I would just say, I think when I ran, it was pretty clear that there was a difference there. I mean, I was asked multiple times in candidate forums, and every candidate forum I was asked, I was very clear about my position. Mac ran a candidate profile about us. I was interviewed and asked about it. I answered the question. I mean, I don't know.
I never saw anything in print from you about losing our juvenile system.
I mean,
Is this the appropriate time to be discussing this?
Well, I think it's now's the time to do it before we lose our juvenile local control. I think it'd be the way to
So
have
Jim, I'm
this.
going to ask,
Because
we're on 5.6, considering the approval of the chief of staff hiring process. Does this discussion have anything to do with that?
no, she was over 5.6. I came after that.
This will be on an agenda coming up, though.
It will be.
Sometime, won't it?
Mm-hmm.
But yes, but I mean, the people in the county should have a voice in saying, if people in the street do not want that. They resent not knowing this was happening. And before we lose our local control, I think we should have an informed
Well, I
record vote.
appreciate people contacting me, not just talking about it on the street. No one has contacted me and made that statement.
Well, but people are busy working and everything. And people
I have
contacted
a
me,
different
certainly
email
have.
address, and I'm available in the evenings. And if they have time to stop on the street and talk about it, then they have time to dial my phone number.
Well, I think we should have a public forum about this and be voted on by the county, because that's too important a thing to lose. Just,
We have had 2 public forums,
that's right.
and very few people have shown up.
That's the whole point. People are too busy trying to make a living, got their life to do. They do not like to come to a station like this and confront people. No one likes to do, I don't like to do that. But I think it'd be a proper thing to do, and I'd really like
Your
to.
point is well taken, and it will be something to discuss at another quote meeting.
Well, I would much prefer a vote like this. I don't really like to mention the word recall, but people are very unhappy about this. You may not realize it. And the ethical thing to do is to let the informed people in the county know what to vote on. Otherwise, I think it's a really sad situation. You can put it under the bridge if you want, but I think it's pathetic, very arrogant and condescending to not to have a vote.
I think you have spoken your piece, and I appreciate you coming, Larry. And when people talk to you on the street, would you please let them know that my contact information is on the county website, and I would be more than happy to hear from anyone and everyone. And at this point, we need to move on with our regular meeting. Thank you.
Okay, well, like I said, once it's publicized and people have a chance, I think it's a crime to, destroy our local control. I mean, it's an arrogant thing, not even to let people have a vote on it. Because people did not know this was going to transpire. I'll tell you that.
And your point is very well taken, and we understand your position.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you.
Thanks, Larry.
Thank you.
All right, new business. Discuss courthouse ADA upgrades. Jeff. So to set this up, this was on the agenda in response to Leslie's fanning herself in here.
Get warm, Sherry.
In response to the letter we received from the DMV, basically citing a couple of concerns, ADA-related concerns in the building, and breaking the news that if we are not able to fix those concerns, that they would only be able to provide service through the end of the calendar year. So I asked Jeff to come and kind of talk us through a little bit.
So I haven't done a great deal of detail work to look at this, but I'm going to kind of give you the background as I understand about how things go. So this building, to begin with, has some accessibility challenges, and they're built into the building. One of them is it's split level, right? The entries are at the midpoint, and then both floors are, one's below and one's above. So at some point, I think in 1995, or 94, 95, the court put in the wheelchair lift that we have here. And then that was replaced in 2012 to 14, I think. And so, and the purpose of that is to get people from the ground floor up to the, or to the second floor. And those are permitted to be used in retrofit applications. Now, Judge Farrar showed me a letter that the DMV had presented that they thought were deficiencies, and I haven't gone through and evaluated whether I think those are. There were some things I had some questions about. There was one of them was the lift, and I think the other thing was a restroom. And so I think we could probably go in. I'd have to go and look for restrooms and see what can be done to make those. In fact, I honestly thought that they were at least partially accessible. So I need to go back and look at that. There's kind of two things that drive, or I guess in this case, there's three things that drive this. Building codes essentially says, hey, if you have an existing building, you're not necessarily obligated to bring up to accessibility standards. However, if you do certain types of renovations, you can be obligated to spend up 25% of that to make upgrades. Now, there's eligible costs. So in general, the electrical, mechanical, and plumbing are excluded from that. Maintenance, carpeting, reflooring are also don't count towards that. So that's how the building code side. And then this is stepping outside of where I usually, from an accessibility standpoint, but there's also, I think it's Title II of the American Disabilities Act, which talks about making sure that public buildings, that people have equal access to those. I'm assuming that's where the state's coming from on doing this right here. So I'm not sure what you'd like me to do with that. I think the first step is to go through and see if, in fact, what the DMV is claiming to be deficiencies are in fact deficiencies relative to the standard. Okay, and the standard is adopted through Chapter 11 of the Oregon Structural Specialty Code, which is the building code. And it's ANSI 117, and Oregon adopts the 2009 version of that. So that's the code that we would look at and we do evaluation on. And then if you do find deficiencies, then try to come up with a plan to address those deficiencies. That's what we can do. Do you have any questions?
I guess I do. If going to the trouble of deciding whether or not if it's a deficiency or not, if we say, oh, we looked into it, it's not a deficiency, is the state going to change their mind?
I don't know.
So I'm just
No
wondering
idea.
if we need
It's
to
like,
do it.
you're asking, does it matter?
Yeah.
I think you can make a run at saying, well, this is why we think this is in compliance, or it's not in compliance with it. Any way that you're going to have to make an improvement, you got to make some evaluation about where you are to see where you're going to go. Judge Farrar also talked about the possibility of installing a elevator in the building, and I think it's possible to do it. It's going to be a big job. When this lift was replaced, I believe it was that court we looked at, I think we may have even done some cost opinions on it. Commissioner Gronquist, I think in particular, was curious about the possibility of doing that.
Would it be in the same location? Or where would it
I
be?
think it would be close to the same location, but I think there would be a fair amount of building work associated with it because it's going to take a bit more space.
And the one thing that I had sort of, I think, where I was coming from is if the state looks at it, or whoever enforces the ADA, and says that we're out of compliance, we have an opportunity, I mean, DMV is willing to kick in $75,000. So what I wanted to avoid was saying no and then having the state come in later and say, you have to make all these upgrades, and then not having the cost sharing. So I felt like it was at least prudent to look into whether we need to make those upgrades, because if we do, even if they're expensive, at least we would be sharing the cost, whereas once DMV is out, obviously, we're not gonna have that up to $75,000 to help offset costs. So I thought it was worth at least pursuing in case we are out of compliance and do need to do things on our own, because here's a potential pot of money to help save the county some money and bring us into compliance, so.
And the other part that if you would have said some state agency was interested in this, I would have anticipated the circuit court would have been the ones that would have been more concerned about the accessibility issues than DMV. Just because they're on the second floor and they've, like the sprinkler system in the building, and which was a DOJ project, or was circuit court Department of Justice project, and then some of the communications. There's been a number of projects that they've been involved with, so. Sometimes they have court security money available. I don't know how that works.
I did reach out to Angie at the circuit court, and unfortunately they don't have any funds to help us, but.
So I guess the one thing I could do right now is I could submit a proposal to you to kind of look at where you are on it, and then where I think that there's opportunities to make improvements, and what I think roughly the cost of those might be. The elevator's going to be, if we were to head down the path of an elevator's a big deal. I mean, we're talking, I hate to throw out numbers in public meetings, but I think we're looking at well over $100,000, but hopefully less than $500,000 on an elevator.
Wow.
The elevator itself is part of the cost, but then there's the structure that goes with it that will be, I think, more of the cost. And that's what my conclusion was. So, just to make it fit.
I think we might also, as a court, maybe have counsel look into the other side of the question, which is, it may not be a building code, but it may be an ADA non-compliance issue that we need to look at.
Absolutely, and I think it's kind of a complaint-driven process. So I'm not sure that, but from my perspective, building code is very clear. It's like, okay, this is what the standard, this is what compliance is. What drives you to get to that point? Talk to counsel about that.
Okay.
I'm not gonna be much help. I can tell you if you do a remodel, you might be able to might have to spend 25% on it. But outside of that, I don't have much.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna be able to advise you on that.
So I think we might want to check in with counsel and just see what our exposure is if it's out of compliance, what our legal obligations are to upgrade it. Does that sound?
Well, it is kind of there is a grandfathered thing existing. Is it only if we're going to make improvements?
No, well, so here's what I'm saying. If in the existing building, if you make an improvement, if you were to do a remodel, like if you were to go in a significant remodel where, I don't know, back here you go and you redo a bunch of walls and a bunch of doors, and you change the layout of the building, say for the treasurer's and assessor's office. Say that project's $100,000. Well, you could be obligated to spend up to $25,000 to do that, and that's written in. It's not actually the building code; it's an ORS, but it comes in the building code. But the other part of that is because you're a public building, there's this equal access provision. So it's like, is somebody being denied a service? And that's a separate. That's not a building codes issue. So that's how you can end up being an existing building that you wouldn't otherwise. But if somebody can't get to the courtroom, then potentially you could be compelled to make sure that that person can get access to Quorum. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Questions, Sherry?
I do not.
Okay, so for follow-up, I think I'll check in with our council. And then it might be nice to even have sort of a read on if we are out of compliance, what.
Yeah, we could do it. We did one the other day for building canopy. I mean, you go through and there's a checklist that you go through to identify where you're in compliance and where you're not in compliance on this. It's the bigger question, what do you do about it? That's it. So it's something we can certainly do. Right. Also making a proposal on that, and the court can choose to go on to that.
Sounds good.
Right.
Thanks, Jeff.
Anything else?
That's
Thank
it.
you.
Thanks.
Okay, 6.2, consider approval of volunteer insurance resolution. John, do you want to come up?
Sure.
Anyway? So we have a couple things to chat with you about.
Yes. Good afternoon.
Hello.
So to address that first part of that, John Anderson, Legal Insurance, I would propose that you don't adopt that resolution because some things have come to light from CIS in a small amount of time.
Okay.
Would you ask them to speak into the mic because I can't hear you?
Sorry. Is that better?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So some things have come to light with CIS. They were, and of course, the work comp is new to my agency as of this year. They were applying a 20% credit to your work comp to offset what they call an experience modification factor, basically your loss history. The more losses you have, the higher that number becomes. If you don't have any, it drives down. To get right to the point, what that means is the premium went from about $87,000 to $127,000. And I got that in a short time frame. This happened to be on vacation, so as your agent, I went ahead and secured a quote from Safe Corporation. I received that quote this morning. Apples to apples, you're going to save about $37,000 by switching to Safe Corporation, which would be my recommendation.
Okay.
And I've got all kinds of facts and figures I brought if you want to dive into it. I don't know if now's an appropriate time, but there is a clock on this thing. CIS has a 30-day cancellation notice requirement. To fulfill that, I put in a cancellation notice on the county's behalf effective 7/1 on 6/1 to meet that requirement. I've got a 10-day grace period to then either let CIS know, yes, we're going to continue coverage with you, or no, please continue with the cancellation. So I've been over it with Ellen. We've matched the class codes and the payroll. I mean, it's all there. It's just a better rates for the class codes. And it's a significant savings.
Yeah.
Any concerns about SAFE?
The surrounding counties have SAFE, and I'm assuming maybe it was due to cost. I have to say, CIS is wonderful to work with, but as you know, it comes down to the mighty dollar. I think SAFE, John has assured me, you know, they would train me on SAFE and everything else, and it would be the same process. So I have great confidence in our agent.
I have confidence that we'll be able to get Ellen up to speed. It's a very user-friendly website, and we'll either have Ellen come down to the office or meet with Ellen here at the office and give her an orientation using the website. But it's very similar to CIS. You can log in, you'll receive a member login, and you'll be able to see all the data that's there. File your claims online yourself or through our agency. We're happy to do that. But it's very user-friendly and it's very similar to CIS.
And it's a yearly contract, so if you don't like it, if it doesn't work out, then we could go back to CIS.
It's been my experience, because I handle a number of public entities across Eastern Oregon, that it is in these situations that the change is made from CIS to SAFE. Just unfortunately, there's been a not so great loss history, and it adds up in that experience modification factor, and it comes to a tipping point, and you're at that tipping point. So
So you need a motion from us to approve.
and if you guys would like to see the proposal, say
That would be great.
Thank you.
Sherry, do you have any questions?
Mostly just for the court itself and how we track, how we track these volunteer hours.
Okay.
And are there forms that, do we have a form that the volunteers fill out and they?
So, Sherry, on the volunteers, similar to CIS, they don't ask for a resolution like CIS does, but you do, it's audited very similar to the way CIS audits the payroll. So on the volunteer class codes, each department needs to track, keep a roster of the volunteers and then track the days that they work and the hours that they work. There needs to be a record of that for the audit.
Okay,
Most departments are doing that already.
okay, good, thank you.
Any other questions?
I don't have any.
Okay, I will make a motion then. So I would move to approve the proposal from SAFE for workers' compensation insurance.
One quick thing, Liz.
Uh-huh.
One thing that you're not going to see on here, you'll see that this one's for $83,000. There's a hidden cost to this, which is an additional $7,000, so it's going to be more because you've got a 5% credit with CIS for the property and casualty side that you're going to lose.
Okay.
It's going to generate another 7, but again, 90,000 is a lot better than 130.
Yeah. So I'll just leave it at that. I'll leave it a little bit more general so I don't mess up the
There you go. Do we want to say effective July 1st?
effective July 1st. Let's do that.
Okay. I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the proposal from SAFE for workers' comp insurance effective July 1st, 2019. Is there further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries.
Perfect.
All right.
I'll see you guys in Arlington with the property and casualty stuff.
Perfect.
Yeah, have a good day.
Thanks for your work on this, John,
Yeah,
too.
absolutely.
Really appreciate it.
Anytime.
Okay, 6.3, review and award South Gilliam Special Projects Grants. Sandy, do you want to walk us through the
Sure.
group's recommendations? And
So basically for the south end, we had, can you hear me okay, Sherry?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, we had 9 grant applications. And so the review team got together and went through those and took the criteria that has been established in the guidelines and ranked them and made these recommendations. So the number 1 ranked project that we put forward was the Condon High School basketball program, which was putting on the tumbleweed tournament, basketball tournament. We felt like it was a really good project. It ticked off all the boxes. It's a 40-year-long program. It's become cultural for the area. It benefits our local kids in generating income for the basketball programs, and it brings in hundreds of people every year for the weekend and has a big benefit to the economics of the county. And so we just thought it was a good project. We've been funding it, and we recommended full funding in this time around as well. The number 2 ranked project was the Columbia Basin High School Rodeo Club. They requested $5,000 towards the total cost of putting on the rodeo of $28,500. The high school rodeo is put on every Labor Day, kind of in conjunction with the county fair. Again, it brings in hundreds of people, which is good for the economy. It supports the kids. High school rodeo is a little bit different than most high school sports because it's a standalone program. The schools don't support it, don't provide funding for it. So all of the very considerable expenses of travel and taking care of their animals year-round and all those things come out of the kids and their families' pockets. So having this rodeo is both a chance to provide some income or some compensation for those kids to help them cover the cost of rodeoing throughout the year. And it also lets them have a rodeo here close where their family and friends can come and watch and support them. So we recommended full funding for that. Coming in at number 3 was the Condon Child Care. Condon Child Care requested $2,750 towards a total project of $3,916 to purchase and install a new bike rack, and but the bulk of it was for a raised bed vegetable garden. The garden would be used to help the kids. The kids would be involved in growing the vegetables, so it would be sort of a hands-on experience for them. But also the vegetables that were raised would be used in their meal program to help provide additional nutritious meals. So we felt like it was a good project and recommended full funding for that. And if at any time you guys have questions as they go through this, stop me. Coming in at number 4 was the Condon Scholarship Foundation. Now this is one where the review team was made up of myself, Nathan Hammer, and Rachel Weinstein. Rachel and I are both board members of Condon Scholarship Foundation, so we recused ourselves from this discussion. So this was done pretty much by Nathan by himself. But again, we recommend full funding. It's to help put on their fundraising event, so that it helps cover the cost of their dinner and auction, and then the proceeds from that event go to creating scholarships for local graduates. At number 5, we had the Condon Chamber of Commerce. They asked for $10,600, which is a reduction from what they've been asking for and receiving for quite a while, which was $15,000. That's primarily because they switched a part of their request to the other funding pools, to the operational grant funding pool. But this money would be used to put on a number of programs, specifically the Festival of Trees, Taste of Oregon's Wild West Agritourism event, and We Speak Oregon training programs. The review team felt like these were good projects, good for the community, not just in Condon, but for the county and the area in general. So we recommended full funding for that request.
What is their full tree?
So it sounds like it's going to be in the Memorial Hall in Condon, and businesses, like there'll be 20 to 25 trees, and businesses can decorate them, and then they'll charge, I think, admission, and then the proceeds of that go to the school district and the child care, I think.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, at number 6, we had the Gilliam County Historical Society, who asked for $20,000 towards a total project cost of $118,250. This was to cover the cost of putting up a 40 by 120 foot metal building at the museum complex. The new building would be used to house additional artifacts, specifically agricultural implements, wagons, and various historical vehicles. The museum right now is having to turn down donations of large items like this because they have no place to put them, at least no place that would be inside and protected and would preserve them. So our recommendation, we felt like this was a good project. We think it's important to preserve those things for future generations. So we did put this as full funding, but funded with conditions. And the condition that we are suggesting is that before the funds are released to the Historical Society, they show some level of progress towards finding the additional funding that they need for the project. So rather than just give them the money, wait till they set some sort of standard of you need to raise this much, and then we'll release it. That's what the team is recommending. Number 7 is the Gilliam County SWCD. Again, they're asking for $20,000 for a total project cost of over $75,000. And this project would be to convert the vacant lot on downtown Main Street Condon into a park. I think right now they've got some grass that they're trying to get planted and growing there. But this would be to actually convert it into an actual park, basically pave over the area, have some tables and benches and some trees for shade and things like that. The review team, again, is recommending this for full funding with some conditions. We would have liked to have seen the city of Condon maybe participating in this, but that's just sort of a side note. The condition that we would want to have on here is that this park would be in the city's historical district. And so prior to release of any funding, we would want to see project approval from the City Planning Commission and the Historical Committee, just to make sure that this actually is allowable downtown there. We had those discussions. The number 8 one is the City of Condon. This is one that the review team sort of went back and forth on, anywhere from funding it to not funding it. And we eventually sort of settled on a partial funding recommendation. And that's basically based on the city really has plenty of funding to do this project without us. And we didn't feel like it was appropriate for the county to be covering the bulk of the request. The request was for $5,000, the project is $7,100. And so what we have suggested as the review team is $2,500. And just putting a little bit more onus on the city to cover the majority of the cost rather than the county. And last but not least is the Gilliam County Public Library. This was another tough one for the review team. The request was for $1,425 to help put on productions by the Missoula Children's Theater. The review team think it's great and worthwhile, but where we hung up was that the Gilliam County Public Library is obviously a node of Gilliam County, and we didn't feel it was appropriate to grant county funds to part of the grant, the county. And so we kind of felt like it probably should have not made it into the process. So we're recommending not funding it, but we are recommending that the county court, because we do feel it's a very good project and a great opportunity for the kids, that the county court look and see if you can fund it just through the normal budgeting processes. But we didn't feel it was appropriate as a grant within the county family.
Do we have any idea how Arlington funds theirs? Missoula Children's
I
Theater?
have no idea.
I guess I can find out.
Sure.
I think the school district does, is the one that sponsors it instead of the library.
Okay.
So I would think the school district funding.
So, thoughts on, we can do this 2 ways. We can either, do you guys want to award today or do you want to wait?
I would like to wait.
Okay,
Yeah, that works for me.
okay. Is there any discussion that we want to have about the recommendations prior to
Sure.
meeting in Arlington? Let's do that.
How many times did the review committee meet?
Once.
You went through all of them? North and
So
south?
we all individually reviewed the applications, and then we got together as a group and went through them and discussed and ranked them. Came up with our recommendations.
And who was on this committee?
It was myself, Nathan Hammer, the treasurer, and Rachel Weinstein, community development.
Did we talk about maybe having 2 electeds on the committee?
We did have the discussion, but the decision was that because this was a program that had historically been Rachel's, that she would be the.
Are you willing to that? Okay. My questions were more about how it came
How it
about
came
than
about?
what your decisions were, because I
So on the let's start maybe on the public library. Do you guys, I mean, I can go back and just check in with Nathan and see if there's another line item that we could pull that out of. If you guys are in favor of funding it, how do you feel about, one, how do you feel about funding it? And two, how do you feel about funding it out of this line item? Or would
Well, I
you,
think because the county library is the sponsor that we should help fund. And however, it's the money to do that.
okay. Would you prefer it come out of special projects, or do you want me to go find the line item to pull it out of?
I guess that's a question, like you said, for Nathan, what did he recommend? Because he was on the committee that said do not fund, so apparently he has an opinion of where it should come from.
I think he felt, in the conversation that I had with him earlier today, just what Sandy had sort of mentioned about it being Gilliam County granting money to Gilliam County is probably not what we should be doing with it. But, I mean, it'll come out of the next year's budget, so, I mean, we still have money sitting in the SIP discretionary. There's a few places that I can find them at. I just need some direction from you on whether you're comfortable taking it out of special projects, or do you want Nathan and I to figure out a place to take it from, and I can bring it back to us when we make final awards in the next meeting.
So how much money through the budget process did the Gilliam County Public Library get? I mean, is this something that would just be added, is this just something that would be added to their budget for next year?
It certainly could be. You could just add that much more, or I don't know, they may have room within the budget as designed for that $1,400. But if not, it can be added. There's, it can come out of gain share or something like that as well.
We've got a couple of places to take it from, if we would like. I just need direction on if you want it out of special projects, or if you want Nathan and I to find a line item that we think would be suitable.
I'm okay with going with recommendation of the review team and just, finding some other place.
Okay. Sherry?
Yes, I'm sorry, I stepped away for a minute. Whatever Nathan recommends.
Okay. I will connect with him and find an account to take it from. And then I'll bring it back for court approval. So the only one on here that, aside from the public library, that didn't receive full funding is the city of Condon. So I thought I would raise that for their portable stage.
Well,
Thoughts on
I
that?
guess, I was kind of comparing it to some other things. And guess I want the committee to tell me what benefit that has to, I don't know, I'm confused by some of the rejections and their reasoning for them and funding, and actually giving some funding to the state.
Well, and maybe we can talk, I think this might be a good one to discuss when we discuss all of them
Okay.
at the next meeting. Can we do that, Sherry?
Yeah, that's fine, because that's like comparing it to some that were recommended do not fund from the north end. I'm not sure this is any different than some of those.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we will table this discussion until next meeting, and I will come back with a potential place to fund the Missoula Children's Theater for the library, for the court's review and approval. Sound good?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Moving on, 6.4, building codes update. So, I just wanted to update you that I heard back from Karen Pettigrew, who's the city administrator in Boardman, about the possibility of them taking us on as a building codes client. Their new building inspector had literally started, I think, the day before we had the conversation. And so she expressed interest, but she thought it was a little, she wanted him to get his feet wet, I think, before we really opened up the discussion. And so she had suggested that they come back to us in late July, early August. So my recommendation to the court is that we don't rush into a partnership with Wasco County because there's this sort of lag. I am concerned about what kind of quality, how frequent we'll actually see inspectors from Wasco County and how much they'll be charging us. I think that's still an open question, and I also don't want to give up our reserves by just partnering with them because we're waiting on the city of Boardman. So my recommendation would be that we just kind of hang tough. We'll have to put up with the state for a couple more months. But my hope is that the city of Boardman would have terms that would be better for us. She and I talked about the service level, and she thought tentatively that they would likely just set aside a day for Gilliam County's inspections, and they would try to do as much as they could in a day per week, depending on what our volume is. So I'm gonna be trying to figure out exactly how much we have for our big projects at the north end, in particular the windmill projects. The thing that I really appreciated is that they get how important it is to get those inspections done and turned around. And so she had basically indicated to me, if we had a big project like the windmills, that they would make space in the calendar to keep those construction timelines on time. So I like what I'm hearing so far, so I would like to just kind of put us on hold until we can actually see what that proposal would look like and can compare the two together. That'll also give us a little bit of time to just watch and see how Wasco County does in its first month or so running it, and see what our neighboring counties decide to do. We might get some initial feedback on how much service they're actually getting and what the cost is and all those kinds of things that are still kind of questions, I think. So, and then in terms of the McCog reserves, I am still trying to get a meeting set up with the other county courts / county commission out of Wasco County to see if we can reach a resolution on the reserves. So I will keep you updated on that. I am sticking firm to we want a quarter of them, so we'll see how that goes. So I will keep you posted, and I'll keep building codes on the agenda so that we'll have updates. And I think that's it. Any questions on building codes? Rob?
Liz, or Judge Farrar, has any other county actually agreed to sign on with Wasco at this point? Everybody's kind of in the same position?
Yeah. The last that I heard, there was an email from Commissioner McCoy to the windmill companies trying to see what records they had that are outside of what the building codes with the state currently has. And so Iberdrola, I think, was going to go try to look, but their record retention, they may not have that. So he was kind of waiting on information, but I'm trying to push them to let's meet and just decide what we're going to do with those reserves. I think once the reserve question is settled, then Sherman and Wheeler County will likely make their decisions. Although I had heard that Grant County is actually going to the state now. So Grant County used to have its own building codes. I've heard that they're turning that over to the state. And so I don't know that Wheeler County, it seems like Wheeler County's only options maybe either the state or Wasco County. So, whereas the other two, I think we have a little bit more flexibility. So, any other questions about building codes? It's slow, but I feel like I connected with Karen, which I felt good about, so. Any other questions? Okay. 6.5, road department radio installation invoices. Chris, you want to come up and say hello?
Not really, but.
So it's just to set this up, what you have in your packet is a proposal from Day Wireless and an invoice from Day Wireless. And these are for installing digital radios in the road department's vehicles, so that there's some interoperability.
There you go.
Say that word. If, I assume for firefighting and all kinds of things that they needed. And so the issue is the previous court had approved the quote. The invoice came in higher because there was more upgrades needed in the road department's equipment. And so in order to make sure everything's clean for the auditors, we're here to ask, I think, for a new motion basically authorizing that expenditure for the additional $500 odd that it went over.
Okay.
So that's the synopsis. Did I miss anything, Chris?
No,
Got
it was approved last fall, this is part of the law enforcement fund of the economic enhancement ordinance. And there was the equipment of 23, and then there was the installation bill of 39. Well, then I got the bill yesterday, and it ended up being $4,400 for install. The radios have already been paid. And I called Day Wireless, and they said that they found out there was converters and wiring that had to be changed over, hadn't been upgraded for years, and that Dewey had approved the changeover. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna have to go find out who's gonna pay the $500. So, so I went to Dewey, and he's like, well, find out and let me know. So here I am, and that's where I'm at. So, and I did call Day Wireless and said, well, somebody should have been told about that. And they said, well, we talked to Dewey, and I'm like, okay, but he's not the one paying the bill. You should have called me. So, anyhow.
So it came out of it's the law enforcement.
It's the law enforcement fund. They reviewed and revised and amended the economic ordinance last year. And on the law enforcement side, there's a $300,000 cap of a fund. And they changed the wording for some of that to be able to cover 911 communication equipment now. And so that's where we went last fall and asked for the money to come out of there to cover those 7 radios for the road department, since they are our firefighting department when it comes to firefighting for Gilliam County. And they are one of the only road departments in the state of Oregon that will fight fire. I will tell you that after having a meeting with State Fire Marshal's office yesterday. And just a heads up for you, it's coming again. Be prepared. The forecast looks even worse this year than it did last year. And so we are actually having active meetings with the State Fire Marshal's office trying to get ahead of the game. And they actually are meeting, the Governor's Wildfire Council has been meeting and talking about trying to get ODF on board and get some air assets and some of their stuff strategically placed across the state. Because right now it's only in the timber area, and they're really hoping that they can try and get ODF to start covering some of the, what they call, it's not unprotected, it's underprotected. Meaning that it's protected by districts and stuff, but not enough people to show up and fight the fires. So that's going on right now.
So what I'm looking for is a motion. I think we could probably do a motion to pay the invoice from Day Wireless for radio installation from
Okay,
the.
I don't have it. Liz, I don't have it. What was the additional cost?
$500.
It was $500, Sherry.
Okay.
I'll move that we pay this Day Wireless invoice in the amount of $4,401.55 to cover the radio installation for the road department. Great.
I second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we approve payment of the Day Wireless invoice in the amount of $4,401.55 for radio installation. Is there further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, we're all set.
Dewey thanks you.
Okay, 7.0, court member reports. Leslie,
Well, it's hot, so this is probably my fastest.
make it quick.
Fastest ever. I really don't think I had any meetings meetings over the last, since our last meeting, so that's how that went. I would like to bring up considering possibly maybe moving our meeting times to the morning, trying that. You know, we've tried the afternoon, and I would like the court to consider possibly going to a morning meeting time and trying that, you know, trying out a couple different things, but it would be cooler. And that's my argument. No, it just, for my schedule, the morning would be a little bit better, and so I just wanted to throw that out there in case anybody else thought that might work for them too.
That works fine for me.
I'm okay. Are we thinking like maybe 10 to noon?
That would work for me.
Does that work for you, Sherry?
Sure.
So do you want to start that during our next meeting, or would you like to wait until the new fiscal year?
I think July.
July? Okay. Sherry, does that work for you?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so starting in July. We'll do that.
And then there was something else I wanted to talk about, but I'll wait till the next meeting because it will be in the air conditioning in Arlington at the next meeting.
Somebody get this girl a fan.
I know. Well, I came early, and then instead of going to an office where it was cool, I just sat in here and sweltered. But I did see something that I thought was interesting in the days gone by out of the East Oregonian, and I don't know who else saw it, but I just wanted to read this real quick because I got a kick out of it. 50 years ago, from the East Oregonian, May 31st, 1969. It said the Gilliam County Court wants taxpayers to get better service in the county courthouse. It wrapped out a policy statement this week that forbids coffee to be made and served during working hours. That was the best one. Orders the removal of the soft drink machine and orders storage of the civil defense radio. The purpose for any of us being here is to provide statutory service to the public, the court said in a notice posted on both floors of the courthouse. For their taxes, they are entitled to reasonable, courteous, and competent treatment and service. There has been a laxness in these respects. So.
And I would like to go on record, and Ellen Wagner can verify this. I believe that Lester Brooks was the commissioner.
Proud legacy, Sherry.
No more coffee. That's all I have.
No more for him.
That's all I have.
Okay, Sherry?
I did have a couple of people call me regarding the juvenile court issues that we've been discussing. They were both in favor of the change to the circuit court. So I've been hearing from people on a positive note. Those that feel that it isn't a good idea have not been contacting me. These were reputable people who have worked for the county. So, you know, those are the things that are helping sway my opinion. I want people to know that. I did do the art note tour with Jeff Shaw and Dan Lawrence, and that was very interesting and informative. Jeff gave me a good tour of the inside and the outside of the building, and I learned a lot. I attended County College in Salem, subject to public safety. That was very enlightening as well. Serving on the Norfolk board and getting to see the academy where our law enforcement people are trained, and then also seeing the Marion County Jail was very interesting. I attended the Frontier TeleNet budget board meeting and finalized the Quorum budget.
Woohoo!
And Gilliam County will be seeing the difference in the our part of that budget. So I also went to the White Town Hall here in Arlington. It was not very well attended, but we had some interesting discussions. That's it.
Great. So for me, I just got back from vacation, so I don't have a whole lot to report. The two things I just wanted to flag for you is we are currently advertising the administrative assistant position. It's in the paper. We started to receive applications and inquiries on that, so that's good. I think that closes the 18th.
Will we get an opportunity to
So that's a good question. I'm thinking, because I'm gonna have to coordinate how to do that. My assumption was that we would do a hiring committee that consisted of one of the three of us, plus probably another elected or two, and maybe, I don't know who else we want to include, maybe a staff member. And so likely what we would do then is at least keep the other two who aren't on the hiring committee in the loop about who's applied and kind of what the process, but the hiring committee then would need to appoint a chair that's not one of us, obviously, to facilitate that communication without violating public meeting law.
Right.
So I haven't quite got to that yet, but I will work on that next week. But I think we can definitely at least facilitate sharing of information. So the question is, would you guys, do one of you have an interest in sitting on that hiring committee, or would you like me to sit on the hiring committee?
I'm okay with you doing it.
Okay. Sherry?
Or I would, if you don't want to, whatever, it's up to you.
Okay. All right. And then the other piece was that I emailed a memorandum from Katie, who is one of many of our new legal counsels, who was looking into the questions about the juvenile court jurisdiction. She was double checking that the move would be permanent, that she also answered the question about whether I could continue to sign them individually over sort of one by one. She answered the question that Larry raised earlier about changing the makeup of the court. So there's a response in there, and I think there was one more, but it's slipping my mind right now. So anyway, that is in your inbox. My intention, unless there are objections, would be that I would put this back on the agenda to at least get an initial read from where the court would like to go during our next meeting. So that our council has, if the court is interested in transferring jurisdiction, our council needs that kind of guidance so that they can get into what the actual technical process is of doing that. And if we do not want to go down that route, then of course, then that's the end of the conversation. So, so anyway, that is my intention, to put it on the agenda. And I think that's it for me. Anything else for court member reports?
I don't have anything.
All right, 8.0, announcements and next meeting.
All right, so coming up, tomorrow, 10 a.m. here at the Courthouse, Frontier Regional 911 Board Meeting. On Saturday, the 8th at 9 a.m., the Veterans Benefit and Resource Fair in Arlington at Earl Snell Park. Frontier TeleNet budget hearing is on the 12th at 1 p.m. at the Jeannie Burge Building in Fossil. The Metro tour is scheduled for the 27th. I think I sent out to you guys the schedule starting at 11 a.m. With a tour of waste management, and then going to the Gronquist Building for lunch and discussions. And so our next court meeting will be on the 19th in Arlington at the Gronquist Building. And then the July 3rd meeting has been canceled.
So on the Metro visitors, there was a question about who all we should invite, and my instinct was to at least send an invitation to all of the electeds, any of the electeds who would like to attend. Are there other people that you all would like to invite to participate in that conversation? I mean, we can extend invitations perhaps to the city councils, if their members would like to attend. I do think it's helpful for Metro to hear from people who are benefiting from our partnership. So the same types of people that would have signed letters of support is probably helpful to have some of them in the room to be able to share what our cities have been able to do with host fees and those sorts of things. So,
How soon do we have to, I mean, is this something we could come back for next meeting, or do we need to decide
I think pretty
Figure out
quick,
pretty
but if
quick.
you've got folks that, how about if you have folks that you would like to be invited, that you just let Sandy know? And,
And I do need that, they're waiting so that they can have head counts for everything. So I really do need to get back to them.
Yeah, and I'm okay with anybody that you think we should extend an invitation to. I'm good with that.
Yeah, I think the city council is a good idea. I think we really should invite her.
okay, we'll issue those invitations.
And the port commission.
And the Port Commission, okay.
Could you add the chambers to that too? 'Cause
And
I
the-
know Kaylin went down and gave a presentation. It would be nice to,
Have her be there.
yeah,
And-
in the Arlington
and
chamber.
Marta too.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Right.
okay.
Okay.
Sandy's like, oh.
All right, all of Gilliam County's gonna be there.
Well, not everybody's gonna be able to come. so.
I understand.
All right. Okay, with that, anything else for the good of the order? Not, then I will adjourn this meeting. It is 2:30.